Krishna Govinda. So, I think we're broadcasting. Everyone wants to know what we're going to talk about. I have no idea. So, I have to see. Our audience is here and the computer's here, so they're going to see me to the right. And I have to.
Yeah, I like this section.
We have an extension, so we could move it. Okay. They see me. Okay. Good.
Why not move? Maybe move the whole thing in the front? Yeah, we can.
Once we do the extension.
Yes.
What I've been doing, I just got back from India, and I did doing some home programs. One of the things I like to do.
I was thinking if we move this whole
Yeah, when he gets the
extension. Yeah, which one?
he's going to get the extension and move it. Hold on, everyone. We're going to move to the front.
Yeah.
So this is the last time I was in Edison was, I think, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 5, 4, seems like, yeah. And that was the first time I had been in Edison. So this is a rare. This is a rare event. Yeah, that's good. I have this light above me that makes me look like I'm in the Brahmajyoti. It's actually better over there because
I can turn this off if you want.
then it'll be too dark.
Make it better or?
That's fine. I'll make it worse. Anyway, we'll try. The light's in front of me. Now I look like a ghost. Right? I think I like it better over here. A little bit, just a little. It's bad.
reflection.
At least I can come under it. All right. Something like that. I'm living in the Brahman effulgence. Trying to get that light out of the picture. That's better, right? Okay, so I've been doing some programs in, well, we did some home programs in, whoops, it's not plugged in. Maybe this is not turned on.
Maybe.
Maybe it doesn't work anymore.
There's a reset button on the top. On the very top.
This one?
No, this side is okay.
Okay.
It can.
So, I didn't lecture on anything. We just took questions. And there's supposed to be a lady coming who likes to ask questions. But I actually prefer when people ask questions because that way I can address what people are interested in hearing. Otherwise, I can talk about something that may not interest you. But sometimes it takes a while before people come up with questions. But anyway, let's start like that. If you don't have questions, I'll ask you questions. And then I'll answer the questions I ask you. So, yes, you have a question.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
What, in your recent traveling, what was your most favorite Krishna conscious place and why?
Ah, Vrindavan. And you know why. Outside of Vrindavan?
No, that's good answer.
The second most favorite place was they have an eco village outside of Mumbai. Now, Radhanath Swami's disciples are doing it. They make their own bricks out of condensed earth. They don't bake them. And they built a number of guest houses with so they have 80 rooms now for guests. And then they have conference center and an auditorium. It's all made from these bricks. And now they're building mud huts. And I said, when I come back, I want to stay in the mud hut. And I kind of sense living in a mud hut would kind of like, if somebody was sick, we just put them in a mud hut and with the earth. So that was my second favorite place, I think. The air was very clean. And they have this big yoga shala, huge. We had kirtans there at night. Everybody loved having the kirtans out there. It's just, natural. And they're trying to do everything as natural as far as possible, which is really nice. Growing everything. They don't have any air conditioning. They're not sure they want to do it because they want to go natural. I told them you can use gober for they have motorcycles, but you can use gober. You can convert it to a gober motorcycle. So that would be nice. At least anyway, they're trying to do that.
They have water, lake.
Not sure where they're getting their water. But it's just nice that it's being done, and it's specifically being done to invite Westerners. And they've got a nursery where they're seeding all their plants. They're going to plant like hundreds of mango trees. Because it gives shade and they grow fast and they're easy. And they get groups of people coming there for retreats. Every weekend it's full. So that was really nice being there because it's something. I was talking to devotees in Baltimore and Potomac this morning, and I was saying that Prabhupada was very idealistic. And if you see some of the projects that Prabhupada wanted, it almost seems that they were impossible to be done, either to be done by anyone or to be done by Westerners. But he, the idea of a Gurukula, and so many things that didn't seem to fit in with what was possible or the way people think. But that's what he wanted. And so this is an idealistic project. So I was happy to see that. Then we did a program in Bombay at a devotee's home. And the son took me to the window and he said, "You see that house across the street? That's Amitabh Bachchan's house." So we were right across the street from Amitabh Bachchan. For those of you who don't know, Amitabh Bachchan's if you go to India, you'll see a million ad billboards with him on it because he's one of the most famous actors. Or he used to be. One of the favorite things I noticed all over India was that now in India people are very eager for Krishna consciousness. And they're extremely sincere and open. And just incredibly interested, especially the devotees. And there's a whole generation of college graduates that are joining. And a whole generation of younger people, newly married couples that are joining. And they're like full morning programs in their home. Rising at 4:30. It's very common. That's going on. When I do a japa workshop there, during the breaks, have 10, 15-minute breaks. Every break, I'm surrounded by 10, 15, 20 people just asking questions. And we have to stop them to start again. They'll just ask, how do I do this? How do I do that? So it's nice to see that. There's so much interest in being Krishna conscious. They're so serious about it. Then, Mayapur, 800 devotees at Mangalarti. In case you have a hard time getting up in the morning, you can just meditate on the 800 devotees at Mangalarti in Mayapur. This is a normal day. This is not the festival. It's a normal day. So that's very nice. That's a very special program, to be with that many devotees in the morning. Can you imagine 800 devotees at Mangalarti? You'd want to be there, right?
Yes.
Then in Mayapur, there was an ISKCON leadership sangha with all the leaders around the movement. And very, very powerful. Very positive. So there's a lot of enthusiasm. But I specifically like the eco-village because I'm also idealistic. And I have, you could say I have a pet peeve a little bit, that I want to see, you know what a pet peeve is? Pet peeve. When there's something that bothers you about something, that's called a pet peeve. Let's say everywhere you go, people do something and it's bad. You say, I have a pet peeve. Everybody does this and it's wrong. So I have a pet peeve that Krishna consciousness is idealistic, but we are not always idealistic. We opt for the path of least resistance. So who's the bold person that wants to start an eco-village, and pump water and, simplify their life? So most of us don't want to do that. So that's why I liked it. Most of us just want to add Krishna to whatever else we're doing, which is, it's not a very idealistic way of life. It's just, keep the status quo and throw Krishna in the mix. But Prabhupada wasn't like that. He was more throw Krishna in the mix and throw out the status quo. Dissolve the status quo with the mix. But that's not so easy. And it's not where we begin our spiritual life, but gradually we want to come there. And Calcutta Temple, amazing temple. In the Calcutta Temple for Mangalarti, probably 180 devotees. Average age, probably 26. Average devotee, college graduate. And it's like a big family. And then they have about 15 devotees that work but live in the temple. They have a program all throughout India where people are working, but they're thinking about moving in the temple, and they can live there. And these boys are wonderful, and I would give classes there, and they would just take everything I was saying and apply it. And it's a wonderful community. Now they've bought the whole building. If you've been to Calcutta, downstairs was bought, and they're putting a restaurant there. And they have another property, they're building a temple. And everywhere in India, temples are shooting up all over the place. You can't keep track of them. So, and I noticed I could really appreciate the effect of America on the consciousness by being out of America for so long, and then returning to America. I returned only 3 weeks ago, and I already feel it, the effects of it. America is thick with Maya, and it affects us very much. We're affected by it. Even we don't notice we're being affected by it. In India, I do workshops. Small workshop, it's 100 people. That's small. I mean, your workshop means the whole weekend. You have to take off Friday night, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. That's a small workshop. I went to Bangalore. They have a congregation of 500. 250 people came. That's half the congregation came for the whole weekend. So it's a different atmosphere. You do that in America. I'm busy, this, that. We're so tired, working all week, And you get 15 devotees or 20 devotees. Throw in a sannyasi, get another 10. Right? That's America. We're affected by it. And after a while, even you throw in a sannyasi, it doesn't do anything. So, yeah. But I want to tell you what happened in Vrindavan. This is very nice. Are you listening out there? Let's see. I have to check in, see if you're still awake. See, there's a devotee. She's listening from London, from England. You know what time it is in England? It's 1 in the morning. So she's anxious to hear, right? Are you still there, Roma? I want to make sure you're there. So, I did a workshop in Faridabad, which was only 2 hours from Vrindavan. And I had been in India for 7 months and I hadn't gone to Vrindavan. And Vrindavan's my favorite place. So I had 1 day to go to Vrindavan. So we left like 5 in the morning, got there right around Guru Puja time. Put my things away in a guest house and walked to the temple. And I saw one of my godbrothers there. I hadn't seen him in 2 years, Keshav Bharati Maharaj. And he also had not been to Vrindavan for 2 years. I had not been for 2 years. And he walked in and he was just explaining how wonderful Vrindavan is and how wonderful he feels. And the amazing thing is, everything he said was exactly what I would have said to him if I were speaking and he were listening. And then we went up in front of Radhe Shyam. And we both were staring at Radharani. And he looked at me and he said, and this is what I was thinking. He said, there's no Radharani as beautiful as this Radha. And I was thinking the same thing. So we were feeling Vrindavan. Vrindavan's a feeling. And then I went to see a friend who is in charge of the 24-hour kirtan in Vrindavan. Oh, we have a harmonium. Jai, do we have any kartals? Maybe. Yeah, okay. Great, we have a nice kirtan. So, then I want to tell you this story. It's a really nice story. So I'm in Vrindavan, and I'm feeling something special. Keshav Bharati Maharaj is there. He's feeling something special. We're looking at Radharani and saying, there's no Radharani that's beautiful. This is transcendental beauty. This is beyond anything you can experience materially. So then, there's a friend of mine. Actually, he's the son of a friend of mine, but I'm renting his apartment in Mayapur, and he's in charge of 24-hour kirtan after the departure of Ayendra, named Gopal. So he invited me over for prasadam, and we were talking. And he was telling me about this group of college students that came. And they were photography students, but their teachers are devotees, so he brought them to Vrindavan for their photography. And so Gopal takes, whoever comes, he takes them around Vrindavan to different places. And these are people who have they would otherwise have no interest in Vrindavan, and otherwise they would never end up in Vrindavan. So he said after 3 days when they were leaving, they asked him one question. They said, Gopal, can you explain what is this feeling we're getting in Vrindavan? I've never had this experience before. I don't know what it is. What are we feeling? Isn't that nice? That's Vrindavan. What are we feeling? The mercy of Radharani. So just by going to Vrindavan one day, and every day after that, when I chant my rounds, I would meditate on Vrindavan and try to feel the feeling I had in Vrindavan. And immediately my rounds would go off the charts, through the roof, just by thinking of Vrindavan. So that's special. So you go to a holy place and you gather that feeling and you take it with you. And you meditate on it. And then you're there. Then Delhi Temple, also there. Delhi Temple, 350 devotees from Mangalarti. And then at night, when I was there, they asked me to do kirtan. So I'd do kirtan, set up a whole sound system, keyboard, mridanga players. And, because evening arti, it's India. People just coming, so people stay. What else do they have to do in India? So they just stay till 9:30, 2 or 3 hours of kirtan. No problem, right? That's India. Somehow or other, right? Every night I do that, people stay. It's not advertised, they just stay. And then you know Vrindavan, North India. What do people do in North India? They dance. So the evening kirtans in Vrindavan, nothing like it. Just nothing like it. The kirtan right before Sundar Archie. All these people coming and dancing. Just amazing. It's nothing like kirtan in Vrindavan. But then we had a kirtan mela in Mayapur for 5 days. The whole temple packed, 1,000, 1,500 devotees. Can you imagine 5 days of kirtan with 1,500 devotees? It's amazing. So when you go to these events, you really want to take it with you. You know, what you experience, take it and hold on to it. Because sometimes that's all we have to keep us alive, isn't it? Sometimes things are just bad. So every place was my favorite. What else can I tell you? We went to Israel. They have a community there that's preaching to professional people. They're attracting all kinds of professional people. They're not wearing dhotis, sikas, which is undertone. It's almost like preaching in a Muslim country, preaching in a Jewish country. Then I went to Calcutta, did a program with Bhakti. You have Bhakti Vriksha. I said, so how's Bhakti Vriksha going? Oh, there will be 50 devotees initiated this year. You know, just growing. So it's happening. So, any other questions? Yes.
Can you tell us some experience with interaction with Srila Prabhupada?
Oh. Want to hear when he chastised me?
Yes, everything.
You know, you have to realize something. I would like to explain the context in which Prabhupada was preaching, who he was preaching to. When I joined when I was 19. So that was 1970. And I would say, you know, the average devotee was either 19, 20, 21.
How did you come to know this?
His devotees were at the college. Yeah, they were there. I mean, I lived in Los Angeles, so I'd see them there. I'd go to San Francisco. You know, the devotees in those days were on the streets. You couldn't miss them. By 1970, 71, every major city had the devotees on the street. So you'd only miss them if you lived in a small town. But you'd probably see them in the Newsweek or some movie or something. So the average age of the devotee was like 20, 21. And many people who were joining from the hippies and, you know, kind of, how do we say, there's a saying in America, footloose and fancy free. You know what that means? Footloose and fancy free means not tied down to anything. No job, no residence, you can go anywhere, anytime. Footloose and fancy free. Fancy, you know, just do whatever you fancy, and you're not tied down. So you may know the story. Prabhupada went out and preached at a farm, hippies, you know, half the people were naked. He was preaching to, you know, this is what he was preaching to. People who were shirking all responsibilities, experimenting with drugs, experimenting with sexual freedom, and extremely irresponsible, and rejecting the values of their family. So whatever the values of their family were, even if they were good, they would make sure they rejected them, because that was their modus operandi, to reject that social system. Even if it was good, they would reject it. So these were the people that were joining. So when they shaved their head and put on tilak, all that didn't go away. It stayed. That's who Prabhupada was dealing with. Very, you know, in many cases, very irresponsible people. People who wanted to leave their children, or their 1-year-old children and their 22-year-old wife, and take sannyas after they'd been devotees for 2 years. That's what he was dealing with. people who couldn't stay married for more than 2 years. You know, people who couldn't, people who would go out on Sankirtan and neglect their children. You know, their 1, 2-year-old children, and neglect them. You know, so that's what he was dealing with. So I was one of those who wanted to take sannyas, leave the wife and child. So Prabhupada didn't chastise me directly, but his secretary would, Prabhupada would dictate to his secretary. So Prabhupada, he would read the letter. This is how it worked. He told me this is how it worked. He'd open the letter and he'd say, Prabhupada, another sannyas request. Prabhupada would say, who? Mahatma. Tell him he's a nonsense. That's what the devotee told me. But the letter didn't say that, but that's what he said. Tell him he's a nonsense. So I got indirectly chastised for my nonsense request. So, and then if you understand the context in which Prabhupada was dealing, you understand his unlimited patience. And spreading a movement with people who don't really have any qualification to spread a movement. It's just a willingness to do it. You know, I dropped out of college. I was 19. Didn't even complete my second year. And then I was put in charge of a temple. So I wasn't trained as a manager. Here's a temple. Run the temple. So that's what Prabhupada had to deal with. Whoever was willing to do it, that's what he dealt with. You know, all the mistakes in the Bhagavad Gita because the person typing didn't understand what Prabhupada was saying. Pitri Loka was planet of the trees. Scented oils became saintly articles. The nectar of devotion, you know. This is what Prabhupada was dealing with. So, people not being able to get along. Prabhupada having to be the referee. So just unlimited patience. And the thing Prabhupada saw was that these disciples would do anything for him. They were willing to do anything for him. And he would always accept. He only rejected 2 disciples because they just fought with him. They didn't accept him. And then he said, do whatever you want. But that only happened to 2. You know, they wouldn't accept what he was saying. He said, do whatever you want. So, unlimited patience. Then, sometimes we saw somebody would take sannyas, be doing very well, and then, you know, only 26, 28, attacked by Maya, would run off with a brahmacharini, would take money from the temple. Very bad. Prabhupada would say, come back, get married, go on and do service. No resentment. Just take from here, go forward. That's how Prabhupada dealt with it. Unlimited forgiveness, unlimited compassion, just move forward. You want to hear an amazing story? This is incredible. There was a disciple that Prabhupada had that was managing a restaurant, and he decided he would keep the restaurant for himself, you know, keep all the money and so forth. So when Prabhupada came, all the managers got together and they told Prabhupada about it. So Prabhupada said, send the disciple to me. So the disciple came, and Prabhupada said, so, who's your spiritual master? He said, you are Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, so? Does your spiritual master own everything you have? Yes, Srila Prabhupada. He was brahmachari. Brahmachari doesn't have anything. Yes, Srila Prabhupada. So who owns the restaurant? I do, Srila Prabhupada. Can you imagine saying that to your spiritual master? Prabhupada said, take it and be happy. He gave him the restaurant. Can you imagine, you know, the temple president? And your spiritual master gives somebody your restaurant that you paid the money for? So, why did Prabhupada do that? It was a very senior disciple. And he knew if he took that restaurant back in ISKCON's name, that disciple would leave. So because of his compassion to save one soul, he would sacrifice the whole restaurant. And that disciple was a fallen sannyasi. And so Prabhupada just wanted to help. That's who he was. He didn't judge you. He just engaged you and encouraged you. As long as you were willing to serve. As long as you weren't fighting him. As long as you were willing to cooperate. Unlimitedly forgive. That's this nice story that Malati tells to show the relationship between guru and disciple. She was cooking for Prabhupada in Mayapur before there was anything there other than that one hut. If you've been to Mayapur, you see the hut, and that's where Prabhupada lived, just a hut. And in those days, women in ISKCON and women in India didn't have much position. So just for her to cook was very, very difficult because she had to go get the money from the treasurer who didn't want to give her enough money. Probably because she was a woman. That was just the prevailing atmosphere, mood. And then she had to go take a rickshaw and then go to Navadvip and buy the vegetables because I guess you couldn't get any vegetables in Mayapur. And had to deal with all that. 1969, you want to deal with a rickshaw wall in 1969? Yes, just 5 rupees and you get off. That's 15 rupees. And they'll create a riot unless you pay 15, right? That's what it was like then. And then same thing with what India was like in those days when doing business. Whatever they say, it wasn't, it was just hard for her. And she had to cook on the floor. What do you call those? The fire on the floor. For an American, Americans don't squat. Americans are not raised on the floor. They can't do that. So one day she said that was it. She couldn't do it anymore. She was having a breakdown. Just, dealing with all that was so hard. Every day, the treasure, the rickshaw wall, cross to Navadvip, dealing with all that, and then cutting on one of those on the floor, cut, the little knives, and then cooking on the floor, and then with all the other people cooking, and so she said that was it. She was going to go in and tell Prabhupada. She was going to quit. That day she was serving Prabhupada's godbrother. So then she comes in, she's trying to keep her head covered, and it's falling off, and she's trying to serve. And she was at wit's end, finished, over. And Prabhupada said to his godbrother, "Do you see this woman?" He said, "She would slit her neck for me, and I would slit my neck for her." That was it, Couldn't quit then. But that was the relationship. The devotee would do anything for Prabhupada, and no matter how bad it was or whatever, he always accepted the service. He always encouraged. So I think it's a really good example for us. I mean, if you read Prabhupada's letters, he'll say things. I'm very pleased with what you're doing. Krishna's giving you intelligence. You go back to 1968, and the devotee writes a letter to Prabhupada and describes their altar, different kinds of leaves on the altar and, models of this and that, totally weird. And Prabhupada saying, thank you for doing that. I can see Krishna's giving you the intelligence. It's just always encouraging. Because he saw the sincerity. He didn't necessarily see that everything was exactly proper, but he saw sincerity. And so he found that. And that was such a good example for us, always encouraging. How did Prabhupada spread his movement? He spread it through inspiration and encouragement. And he would say, my spiritual master is whipping me to distribute books, and I am whipping you, and you will whip others. So, we never felt that it was just us and Prabhupada, but he was representing a whole mission, and we were helping him in his mission. And then one time Prabhupada said, he was doing initiation, and he said, initiation means to help your spiritual master spread his mission. That's, not just, I need to be initiated so I can go back to Godhead. No, but that was our mood. Right? We were helping the mission, right? So we were all, Prabhupada had this mission. He's the general. He's going to make the world Krishna conscious, and we get to help. What more could you want? It's very difficult to describe what it was like when Prabhupada was here. But one thing I can say, one thing that stands out was mission. Definitely mission consciousness. That we have a mission to save the world. And that, like they say in the professional world, you should have a mission statement for your company. And everyone in the company should know the mission statement. This is our mission. Uncompromised personal service. You have a hotel. Uncompromised personal service. So everyone in the hotel knows the mission statement. You ask anyone in the hotel anything, they'll immediately jump up and do it for you. Because that's the mission, and they know it. So even without a written mission statement, everyone knew the mission was to save the planet. That was Prabhupada's mission. And that's what everybody lived for. It was in our blood. We have a mission. And that's why it was successful. Because the mission was what was in the forefront. Our lives were not in the forefront. Want to hear something funny? It wasn't funny to us when Prabhupada said it, but you'll think it's funny now, looking back. This is 1972. 1972, in our movement, the Grihasta's home, if you went in their bedroom, you wouldn't see any beds. If you went in their living room, you might see what you're sitting on. That was about it. And Prabhupada commented in one lecture, he said, my Grihasta disciples are so nice, they don't even have any furniture. And he was showing that they're so dedicated to the mission. They don't even have the money to buy furniture. They don't even care. And so, of course, we were 22 years old, so, when you're young, you don't care. But still, the idea of dedication. You want to sit, make room? We can sit. We don't have any cushions, do we?
Oh, that's okay. You're not here for this. So.
You want to come?
Well, oh.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So there was a sense of mission, and devotees felt honored to be able to do something which was difficult and makes sacrifice. There's one time Prabhupada said, this amazing thing, he said, we got this in a letter, he said, if anyone will go anywhere to spread Krishna consciousness and not care how they will eat and where they will sleep, I'll take the dust from their feet and put it on my head. I think that gives you an idea of what the movement was like then. Because the average temple in the early days of the movement was 80%, 90% brahmacharis. So you imagine you're a brahmachari in the temple and you hear that, what are you going to do? You're going to jump in the van and drive across the country and fill the van up with books and distribute and preach. You're going to be ready to go anywhere in the world, right? To please your spiritual master. So Prabhupada created that spirit, that revolutionary spirit, the willingness to sacrifice for the mission. And that's why it spread. I mean, people do that now, political campaigns. People do the same thing, don't they? Total sacrifice. How much money do the politicians spend? How much time do the campaigners spend in their own